This is April 27th, 1984. It's Joe Todd and Gary Robinson, an interview with Claude Cox, Chief of the Creek Nation. Okay. Sir, where were you born?
Born right here in Okmulgee.
And when's your birthday?
June the 8th, 1913.
1913. And who's your father?
Porter Cox.
Cox. And your mother?
Stella Haynes.
H-A-I?
H-A-Y-N-E-S.
H-A-Y-N-E-S.
Right.
Okay. What kind of work did your father do?
He was, I guess, he passed away when I was about 15 years old. And he was, I guess you might say, a lineman for a utility company. Okmulgee Light and Power here in Okmulgee.
Where did you start school?
I went to public schools here in Okmulgee.
Hey, what year did you start?
1920, I guess it was.
1920. Okay, you were born in Okmulgee then?
Right.
You pretty much lived in town your whole life?
I was born at right there about 3 blocks from where I live right now on Cherokee and Collins here in Okmulgee. And the house still standing. That house is about 75 years old, I guess.
Can you describe early Okmulgee, what the downtown looked like?
I can just barely remember riding the streetcars when they had them here in Okmulgee. They run down Main Street and out toward the south part of town and up toward the north here ways. And out to toward the old mission, out where Tech is now.
The old mission. What was the old mission?
That was orphan's home.
The orphan's
for
home?
the Creek Tribe.
What was the name of it? Just.
I guess it was a Musco Creek Nation Orphanage, I believe. I don't remember.
Was it run by the tribe?
Yes, until it was turned into a school later on. It's been a school of some kind ever since, I guess. Way before statehood. That corner right there.
When is it organized? That orphan's home.
Gosh, I really don't know. It was in the late 1800s.
What were some of the early businesses in Okmulgee that you remember?
Well, the Morton brothers, I guess, had the largest store here. And I can remember my mother, before she was ever married, working in this Morton Brothers store. And it went out of business in the 20s, late 20s, I guess. It was a large, back then, they had a little everything.
Right.
And,
do you remember Armistice Day?
Armistice Day?
1918.
No, I really don't.
Okay.
Remember.
Do you remember the first time you went to a stickball game?
I know when we was kids we used to, play around with them in stickballs, but I don't remember ever really participating in any of the games, In a lot of the areas that throughout the nation, that was an annual event in stickball games, but my parents and my grandparents never did go too much. Once in a while they'd go to those stickball games and stone dances, but they didn't participate too much. I can remember when I was a kid. Of course, it kind of died out for years, and then now it's coming back.
Have you heard any stories about the removal?
The removal?
Yeah.
Yes, quite a number of stories about the removal, and it was kind of heartbreaking, you know.
Can you recall any particular stories that?
Well, my grandpa was a full-blood Creek, and he was born right here in Okmulgee. His name was Sam Haynes, and he was the last presiding Creek judge in 1896. If I've heard him talk about his father, who came over on a trail of tears as just a young man, young boy, and he would tell us that it was really heartbreaking to hear some of the things and how they were treated in their removal.
Mm-hmm. Remember what he said about how they were treated? Or?
No.
You say your grandfather was the last judge in the Creek Nation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he a district judge
Mm-hmm.
for the Okmulgee district?
How many judges did they have in the nation?
Gosh, I don't remember. It seemed like they had one in every district. You had about 8 districts. Seemed to me like that's about 8. I'm not for sure whether there was 8, but there was quite a number of them. See what happened in, they had a kind of rough constitution that they drew up in 1845, and then they got tied up in a civil war, and some of them fought on the south, some fought with the north, and then they come up with a new constitution in 1867, and the federal government kind of forced them to take on their slaves and make them citizens of the Creek Nation, which changed the whole picture of the whole thing. And it, when they did draft that Constitution, when it opened up for anybody could be a citizen of the Creek Nation, and it was not only the slaves was taken in, but there was a lot of others, other tribes and non-Indians. And by the time that toward the end of the 18th century, where they really lost control of the government. It got so large that they went bankrupt because they couldn't support the government, didn't have enough taxation, enough money coming in to support the government. And then when that happened, about 1898, they were stripped of all their powers, judicial powers, and federal government come in and appointed a lot of United States Marshals. And a lot of those Creek people that were in the law enforcement or judges were made United States Marshals, paid by the federal government. And they would take their prisoners to Fort Smith for trial in violations. But I can remember my grandma would tell me that about taking prisoners to Fort Smith, horseback.
And it was in Isaac Parker's court?
Mm-hmm. In Judge Parker's court.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess from the Dawes Act and the Curtis Act is really what really turned things around, where that when the Allotment Act came about, that's what really broke up the tribe. They was pretty well together until the Allotment Act, because you had little tribal towns in different places throughout the Creek Nation, that were pretty close, they're all close together. Even before after the 1867 Constitution, they seemed to be, as you read the history and study, there had become a power struggle between them, getting representation to the council. And the 3 black towns, the 3 freedmen towns, that grew faster than any other tribal town. Those 3 towns was, by the time they got to the Allotment Act, there was 6,800 of them on the Creek Roads as citizens of the Creek Nation, and there was about 3,500 others, non-Indians that was on the roll. Well, you got over 10,000, see. And of course the women couldn't vote back here in them elections. And then you take there was only about a little over 18,000 that got allotments. Well, you can see that the creeks were outnumbered about 10, a little over 10,000 to 8,000. And there was a lot of them lost in the removal. You know, there was several thousand that were removed from the East Coast over here, and when they got here, you know, they lost a lot of them.
I've
From
heard
sickness and disease and everything.
25%.
Yeah. How much?
25%.
It's probably a little more than that. And so after the Allotment Act came about, well, some of those tribal down members that was way down here in the southern part of the Creek Nation, they got allotments up in the northern part. Just maybe some of them over here, and they just scared them all out all over the country. And they were, I know several families that was, you know, down around Henry back down there, got their allotments was over at DP. And maybe their brothers and sisters maybe got all their allotments pretty close together, but the rest of the family maybe was down there and split them up. And so really, under the old Constitution, you know, you had to have so many to have a quorum to do business with, you know. And of course, they had 2 houses. That was pretty rough. And where you had a representative from each tribal down in the House of Kings, which is kind of like Senate. Then the House of Representatives, or the House of Warriors, it was on the population, and it could be 150 or something like that. But when they broke all these up, well, they ceased to come to the meetings, you know, and have any business, or get a quorum to have any business. And they didn't even have elections. It finally got to the point where the president had to appoint somebody to represent him for, gosh, up until 1971, 69 when they passed that act, and they had 71. They had election, and they used the last per capita roll for that election. Anybody that had proved they were a descendant off the Dawes roll were able to vote. If there were 18 or over, I believe it was 18. Could have been 21, but I believe it was 18. And that's when I became the first elected chief. And to get back up a little bit, that I didn't really get to finish my education. But I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters that were younger than I. And my father died in 1928. And things they didn't have no problems. People didn't have insurance. And boy, I tell you, we had a rough time. And then the Depression hit. So I had to drop out of school. And I worked for the Independent Oil Company here with a team out here on these dikes out here, north town here. From my dad died in November, and I went to work here in December, and I worked till May. And in May I went to work for the public service company in Okmulgee.
What'd you do with the oil company? What kind of?
Just teamwork out there, cleaning out them dikes, around them tanks, oil tanks, with a team. And,
then with public service, what'd you do?
I started in there as I guess you might say, kind of like water boy, really. And then I didn't stay there long. I mean, I didn't work that job long until I got to be a lineman's helper. And then apprentice lineman, truck driver, equipment operator, finally became a lineman, finally made a supervisor, and then got up into customer contact work, new business, before I got into this job. But in the meantime, that I had, I think it was 1940, when I really got in with them. But of course, during the Depression, while we only worked, they laid off a lot of people, and about the only time I got to work for the public service company from about 32 until 39 was just in the winter months, you know, when they'd have something to do. Until 1940, and I went to work for them as a lineman, and went in and worked 5 years. And they had a real good program of educational programs, and I took advantage of all those. And then I was taken into the union, there for 25 years in there. I got promoted out of the bargaining unit, and I was president of that local for 2 terms, and I worked on a lot of negotiations, worked up to president of that organization. First, I guess, a job steward. I was on negotiations and grievance committees and you name it, whatever they had, and they sent me to school, you know, and I got a lot of schooling, a lot of training there. And but I think most of the training I got was with the public service company, where you dealt with stocks and bonds and leases and franchises, and they really start you at the bottom and take you plumb through their
What about
whole
World War
operation.
II?
Huh?
What about World War II?
Well, I missed that. All my brothers was in service, and except the brother next to me, he was working for a railroad company in Tucson, Arizona. But I got on a job down in Renton. The reason I was sent down there is that they had a lot of young guys working down there, and they lost every one of them. And that was a very essential, I guess, operations there in Henrietta, with the coal mines running, the glass plant, and the smelter, and all those were running full blast back there then. And then, of course, we had the refinery here in Okmulgee, and I got down there, and every so often I'd get one of them greetings from the president, you know, and just maybe, yeah, I just got down to where that I was to go the last day, I'd get a notice that had been, you know, got a deferment. And I missed it very closely several times. I thought I was gone. But the company asked for those deferments. You know, they had a board set up where they'd go and review them, you know, and they'd have to go there and plead their case, you know. But we got pretty low. Man, we had I'd have to work in Okemah, Henrietta, and Okmulgee, just back and forth around here.
Is Okmulgee your tribal town?
Okmulgee?
Yeah.
No, Hitchity's my tribal town.
Where's that?
Well, there was a group that's down in this little south of here, just a little bit, you know. Kind of followed my grandpa and all them was from that area right in there, and it's called the Hitchity tribal town. I guess that's the reason they call it the town of Hitchity down there, because it was pretty close in that area. Of course, I don't remember all the boundaries of those tribal towns, and I don't guess anybody else does, because I've never seen anything on it, but they were in different areas, you know,
Yeah.
but as far as the actual boundary lines, I don't know.
Now, does your birthplace determine your tribal town, or your family?
The family.
Family.
Yeah, same clan, same way.
And you follow your mother's clan?
Right.
And what clan are you?
Gosh, I don't know. I've forgotten now. Well, I'll get dealing with these clans, and then first one everybody else telling what clan is. I didn't keep up with it that close.
When did you first become interested in politics?
Well, I guess real early age in working for the company and the union, you know, they pretty well get you involved in these things. And of course, I've been a supporter of COPE. I worked with those people, COP, Committee on Political Education, and then with the public service company, they really got involved in politics and had everybody working, you know, to get somebody in that would be fair to both the union and the company. When you get on, you know, I've been on both sides, you might say, you know. And it's the same way with the tribe. When I got in here, I think that's what helped me a lot with the connections I had when I came in, and being here all my life, and this being the capital of the Creek Nation, that I never did see too much going on. And I know my grandpa would come in and say, well, we're supposed to have a meeting today, but we couldn't go quorum, we just talked, you know, visit, and made plans, so we never could, you know, really pass on it. But then when I came in as elected chief, well, then it kind of looked, I could see it as a different ball game. Really, I wasn't too much interested in it, because see, I had so much time in the public service company. And the last appointment that was made by the president. I could have got that appointment, and I turned it down because it would interfere with my retirement with the Public Service Company.
He was appointed.
He was Todd McIntosh.
McIntosh.
He'd been in, I think, 10 years, 8 or 10 years before, and it was quite a little hassle because they was really wanting, me to get in as a political appointment, see, and of course the Republicans had just got in, and they had we met several times before we made a decision, and I conceded that to run when that bill come in, or agreed to, if they would let Todd McIntosh go ahead and serve out to 2 years, because he was a Democrat, see. So they did. So when the time came, well, they got back with me, and I finally, at the last minute, agreed to run.
How many people ran for chief in that election?
I believe that first year it was about 7.
7?
Yeah.
How close was the election?
Well, I led the pack by just a hair under 1,000. I had 1,000 lead on it. Next man to me, I think I had around 2,900. He had 18 something like that. And then the rest of them was 15, 14, and on down to even 300. And then, see, after that election, when I came in, then I appointed about 7 people as an advisory council. And of course, we didn't have no office, no place to meet. And I had office there with the Public Service Company. We used it for a while, and I moved down in the council house and had a room down there. They gave me an office, and it was too small and too much traffic. And from there, I moved to the Enterprise building, and at least 3 rooms there. And the Housing Authority had moved in there. And I guess the first contract I got was a CHR program. And I started working with this council and trying to get some things going for the Creek Nation, and sold them on the idea that we've been going backwards too long, that we need to turn this thing around and head for greener pastures. And then looking at and hearing my grandpa and all of them, and I can remember when he used to go to Washington, and how I got had a picture of where my mother and him had went to Washington, had some pictures taken, and stayed at that Roger Smith Hotel up there. And first trip I made up there, that's where I stayed. Still there, but they tore it down now and built a new building there. But in looking at all the claims, they had an attorney they'd hired in about 1930 that was still on the board when I came in. And I'd heard him talk about him, and everything. And so I went up there and visited with him, and he'd give me a rundown of all the cases that he had filed, and they'd been filed, a bunch of them, since 1931, and refiled and refiled. So I got to pushing him, to get them settled. And he said, well, you just can't push the Claims Commission, So I said, there's bound to be a way if you can find it, So I found the way, and we got our settlement about $11 million. And we got it to, I guess, probably about close to $19 million now. And it's been hard work and a lot of pushing and pulling and getting to the right people and the right time and the right place. And we were real fortunate to have some good connections in Washington that paid off.
How many tribal members are there now?
Well, I don't know. We got them scattered all over the United States, and we've been under the new Constitution. We've been trying to get them all enrolled, and it seems to me like we got about close to 20,000 enrolled, and I say there's another 40 or 50,000 still out there. And we got about 10, 11,000 registered to vote. So you can see there's quite a number of them out there. Every time we have a new program comes up and they put little restrictions on there, you have to be enrolled, and then we get a run in, And it's been coming right along. So before too long, we ought to have at least a majority of them in another couple of years.
I was just going to ask you, Chief, you back up here. During the Depression, before the war, during the Depression, you were in Okmulgee working for PSO?
Part-time.
Part-time?
From about 32 to 39.
What happened to the town of Okmulgee? Did it just drop back to nearly nothing, or what happened in Okmulgee?
Yeah, everything just, banks closed all over the country. And
I heard that
everything.
Okmulgee used to be a little boom town. It had fancy opera house.
Oh, yeah. It used to have I tell you, it was back in the 20s, from about 19 and 20 up until about the early 30s. Man, I mean, it was a booming time. I worked in the 20s. Me and my brother, there wasn't much mercy to get out here and make a little money, pick up a little change. It was easy, wasn't no problem. And one thing I might say, that back there then, it was, for its size, it had more millionaires than any other city its size. And there were a lot of them was Indians.
Was it oil or what? What was the income?
Oil, yes.
Will the oil ever come back?
Well, there's been a lot of production picked up here, when it was hit, about 4, 5, 6 years ago when they started doing all that drilling. They come back through here and got a lot of wells. Because, see, back in the 20s and 30s, oil got down to what, about 2 bits a barrel. And then old Governor Johnson, he went and prorated that, and got it up to about, $2 or $3 a barrel. You could only produce so much. Well, you take, back in the 20s, early 20s and through the 20s, and man, they get a 25, 30, 40, 50 barrel well, and just plug it. It had to be a big well. So, a lot of them came back into production here in the last few years. A lot of those wells here.
How come, any idea why the Creeks didn't keep the royalties in common like the Osages did?
Well, that was one of the things that my grandpa told me that they were trying to do, but they lost control. They was outnumbered. Everybody wanted their share. They didn't want to hold it in common like the Osages. They'd have been one of the richest nations in the world. Did you know up in Glenpool area that some of them wells up there at 40 acre tracts that produced over 3 million barrels of oil?
And that's in the creek, right?
That's a lot of oil. We got some down around Fayetteville that's produced probably almost 600,000 since they come in. Still a pumping, some of them. But they talk about oil sands. I don't know whether you all are familiar with it, but they run, different layers of thicknesses, from 4 to 6, 8 feet. But that up there around Glenpool, from 90 to 135 oil sand.
You need to.
No.
How deep are the wells around here?
Well, they got several different sands they produce out of. There's anywhere from 500 feet to around 4,000. Of course, you start over on this side of the Creek Nation there. Stuff that's shallow. You take the Wilcox probably out here 30, 40 miles, 30 miles, 20 miles east of here is probably 1,000 feet. And you get to here, it's around, it can be at 2,000 feet. When you get on further west, the deeper you have to go. And you take out western Oklahoma, them wells out there, man, they're deep.
And that's Anadarko Basin?
So, right through here, you can, we got some right out here right now that's just brought in the last 6, 7 years that they started pumping up there. 500 or 600 feet deep. I read in the paper the other day where there's one that was, seemed like it was 450, 485, that's making 10 barrels a day. Well, you can drill one of those wells with a water well drilling machine. So there's not much cost in those, but those deep wells what kills you, especially if you get dry hole.
Has your family always been members of Newtown Church? Can you tell us back about your grandpa? Was he a member?
I might say my grandma and a few others, and And Grandpa, I guess, that was about his age, and Sam Chakotay and Martin Chakotay and the Hayneses and the Gibsons and a few others that was, I guess, started in that area. But first it was over about half a mile kind of south east of there, you know, and then they moved a little closer, and then they moved over on that spot there, and they've been there since about early 1900 or right 1898 or somewhere along there. And I guess the first building there was the one that my grandpa built, was a log house there.
The one that burned down
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
And that's where I've been a member there all my life.
Why is it called?
Probably had remembered something about some of their folks that said something about where they came from, because they came from around Macon, Georgia, and in that area. And when I was back there to the old mound there at the National Park, that's the mound that we patterned after here is there, and the original floor is still there. And of course it was reconstructed during the, I guess, the 30s, somewhere along in there. But the original floor is something to see. It's the oldest known public meeting place in North America. And just before you get to that place, was it old Fort Hawkins?
Johnson on 201.
And the little place there they call Old Town. And they said it's been Old Town ever since they can remember when the Indian tribes was there. So imagine when they came back here, you know, and settled in here, they call that place Newtown. That's the only tie I got, and that's the, you know.
Now, the mound back in Georgia, it was a public meeting place for the tribe?
It was round, and it had a little ledge on it, you know, where they come in, they got up on there and sit down with their backs to the wall, you know. It was round. And what really amazed me was that it being 1,000 years old, that clay in there was molded out toward me, our shop. This round seating here, and you come right in, you know, and it was set, and there was a big old crowd jar where you could see it set here, and there was one over on this side. This one is gone, and this nowhere had been broken when it fell in, but it was still there. And right in the center was another raised edge, a little bit higher than these around the side. And it was the shape of the Thunderbird. Had the head and everything.
On a raised platform in the middle.
And they had 3 seats up there, you know, where 3 people sat. Chief, probably, second chief, maybe the speaker.
Now, did they have the tribal towns before the removal in Georgia?
Yeah. It was set up pretty well the same. The
Yeah.
United States, they say that the United States Constitution is pretty well patterned after what the Creek tribe had.
Now, did each town have its own chief? Or how was the
Well,
council
they called them
organized?
tribal town chiefs.
And you had the principal chief, then you had the tribal town chiefs? Okay. When did they develop the system of the House of Kings and House of Warriors?
I guess it was, I don't know whether that came from whether they had that type of government back there or not, just exactly how it was set up. Really, I haven't seen anything on it. Only thing that they did have a chief, because they back there it was kind of split. They had the lower creeks and the upper creeks, but they gathered together. And at this here place that I was talking about, that's the oldest known voting meeting place in North America, they all gathered there and had their meetings. But there was 2 factions of them. And of course, you know, you go back here, I don't know whether you've ever been there or not, but you got the same names of different places back here. We got right here, you got Eufaula, you got Tallahassee, you got Indian Springs, you got Muskogee, and Wetumpka, all the names we got right here is pretty well back there too.
I know what I want to ask. How come they started spelling Muskogee with a K in Oklahoma?
Well, I don't know why they did it, but before they came in here, it was C.
Well, we have some old correspondence at the Historical Society that has with a C, and Muskogee Indian Territory has with a C. And somewhere around statehood,
I guess it was when
1970,
it become a state, and then they started the public schools, and somebody said that them started off with a K, and I guess that's the way it went. It never did get changed. I guess what amazes me is that how they got their name changed, which you don't hear too much about Muskogee Indians, but that's what they were.
Ask.
On the East Coast, they were Muskogee Indians. Well, when the French and the Spanish, and English, British, and all those started trading with them. See, they traded with them. They were very, agriculture people, and they did a lot of trading with those people that came in, the Spanish and all those. And they always found them along the rivers and streams where the rich fertile land was, good fishing, good hunting, and all that. And so they called them the creeks. Because they dwelled along the rivers and streams. So that's the reason they got Muskogee, Creek Nation, in parentheses, But it's been, you go in Washington, they don't call you Muskogee, they say Creek Indians.
In that early period when you were elected chief, but before the new Constitution was ratified in 1979, what kind of problems did you have to go through to try to arrive at getting a new Constitution?
I came in October of 71, I guess it was. And right after kind of set up a advisory group, about 7. And then I picked up a little more, and finally, I think before the end of the next year, I had about 18, 20. But then, right after I got the advisory committee, we sat down and said we need to draft a new Constitution. And I selected, I don't know, about 10 or 12 people, to start to work on drafting the Constitution. And of course, some of them on there, was familiar with the old Constitution and how it operated in the tribal towns. And I told them that we needed to forget about the old Constitution and make it more modern, to where that the women could vote, and some of those things that we needed to cut down on the representation. We didn't need 2 houses and things like that. And then we hadn't more than got started until we got tied up in court with some of the members saying the old Constitution's still good. And so we got tied up in court on that thing, but we went ahead and worked on the Constitution and had it pretty well ready when we went into court. And so the old judge, he said, well, you vote on 3 or 4 different things before you see if that's what they want in the new Constitution, which we wound up with just about what we had drafted.
So you took a referendum back to the Creek people.
Yeah. And it took quite a while. Of course, I had some people tried to stop me from progressing, building these facilities and getting all these programs, in the meantime. But the federal government recognized that I am the elected official, I didn't even need a county council, really. But they recognized the advisory council I had. So it was pretty tough. We had some tough battles. And it was pretty closed in that election, but it went over.
In the new Constitution, does it address the fact that you have non-Indians in the tribe?
We don't have any non-Indians. They were voted out.
They were voted out. Okay. What about the freedmen?
They were voted out too.
Okay.
Only those by blood on a dollar's roll can be members of the
Okay.
School of Creek Nation.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have but 64th or 120th, so you prove you descended off that dollar's roll by blood.
Okay. When is this complex built?
75?
That's what I've been told, but I wasn't here.
I think it was 75.
Where was the old complex? Or was there no
It
complex?
wasn't any.
When did the Dale School down south of town, what was that?
Well, see, I bid that in for him when Todd was, and that was in, I believe it was in 70,
Mm-hmm.
1970.
Did they have offices in there?
They didn't have anything, they just had a little arts and crafts deal going down there with some, in fact, we never got anything really going until after the election. But see, to back up a little, you know, Creek Nation on Bacon College, Utah Mission, New York Mission, and they want that council house down there. And from the time that the Creek Nation lost its council, you know, and all that was appointed chief, you know, that was sold, you know, down through the years to, I guess, keep attorney on, and
Pay off the
and
debt.
that chief, he threw it, I don't know how much in his expense, you know. I guess those were valuable piece of properties. And I guess the last one they got rid of was in the early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was Utah Mission, I believe it was 40s when they got rid of it.
So you've been trying to
So I've
get
been,
land
yeah,
back for the-
right, and see they dispose of some surplus land, and so we've been trying to build our land base back. And they see the federal government was supposed to be our trustee to look after our interests, but I don't think they did a very good job. And the Indian Health Service to provide health care. And we didn't have a clinic one in this county. I mean, in 8 counties. We didn't have a hospital. We had to either go to Claremont, Tahlequah, or Tallahassee, or Shawnee. And maybe they'd have a doctor come one day a week in certain areas, you know, around, you know. He'd get there about 10 o'clock from one of these facilities. He'd be sent out, and he'd be gone at 3. And I felt like our people deserved a better health program than that. Education, same way. And right now, I think we've got one of the best. And we've got 4 clinics, counting the one here. The dental. We've got our hospital. And it's all been the efforts of the Creek people. And we've taken what land that we did have, we've got it back into production to where it brings in more revenue than it ever did. We've cleared, fenced, and operating a lot of it ourselves. And created a lot of employment for our people. With all the health programs that we've taken over, it gives us direct control over those programs. And right now we're in a shape now to where we can supplement some of those to meet the needs that we haven't been able to meet under some of those programs that have guidelines and income limits and so on and so forth. We have probably in the neighborhood of maybe 1,400 mutual help homes. We have probably 600 rental units, and 100 for the elderly, and nutrition programs, Head Start programs that, you know, we wasn't involved with before I came in here.
What about the old Creek Capitol building?
Downtown?
Yeah.
That belongs to the city of Okmulgee. They bought it
Okay.
in 19 and 20.
Is that the courthouse?
No, that was really where the council had their meetings. You know, they got the House of Warriors, they got the House of Kings, and they had the treasurers, and they had some officers down there, and that's where they had their government. It was operated out of that.
Is it being used for city offices now?
No, it's a museum now and a historical. What do you call it? National Historical Site.
Yeah.
Recognized it, but the city owns it.
Anything else?
No, I think you had some pretty good coverage there.
Well, Chief, want to thank you.
Can you think of anything else you ought to tell him?
I guess we got some problems that I guess like everybody else, like any government. But I guess one of the greatest accomplishments I think that the great nation has made, and coming so fast in such a short a time, that we were able to receive conformance reporting on all our contracts, and there's two of them. We've got one in 81 and 82 that we were the first government in Oklahoma to receive one of those. We were the first tribe in the United States, and I think that's a great accomplishment.
Certificate of Conformance and Financial Reporting.
Yeah.
Shows that you are accountable in your...
Right. That auditors can come in here and they can just get a trail and follow it right on there without any problem.
That's good.
I think it's one of the greatest accomplishments that we've made. I'm real proud of the people that I have that really made this come about. It's teamwork with so many different divisions and operations we got, which takes in our agriculture, our tribal funds, all our contracts with the Bureau, all the contracts with the Indian Health Service, the hospital and all. Everything.
Good. Well, I guess that's it. Sir, thank you.